For the tape, this is calling for handi-capable square dancers. My name is Michelle Jacobs. I am a caller from New Jersey. I've been calling 11 years and calling for 2 handi-capable clubs, the Mercer Archangels and the Hunterdon Stars. I'm a board member of the U.S. Handi-Capable Association, and we have a lot to tell you today about calling for handi-capable dancers, and would love to hear any of your experiences, and we're trying to find out more about groups. And this is a population that we're still kind of, figuring out what exactly, it's been new to CALLERLAB, and the committee's still very new. What kind of falls under handi-capable square dancing? And Jerry and Tommy, I have Jerry Yerby from California and Tommy Miller from Pennsylvania. They're going to be sharing their experiences. And also, Tommy has some neat ideas about we're kind of an umbrella actually for a lot of things. And I know I'm guilty personally being a special ed teacher that I think a lot of the developmentally disabled when we talk about, people who are mentally retarded or autistic or things like that. But there's actually a lot of other people we need to consider. So I don't want to step on Tommy's stuff. He's going to share that after he shares his experiences with his club. So let me start with Jerry Yerby. He's been calling since 1990, and he called for the Guys and Dolls and the Motherlode dancers in the Sacramento area in California. He is the president of the U.S. Handi-Capable West Association, and he just put together, and we were out here in July of last year for the first U.S. Handi-Capable West Convention, and had a wonderful time, and I know he's going to talk to you about that one. And he's also a board member of the U.S. Handi-Capable Association. Tommy Miller's been calling for 29 years. He's been calling for his handi-capable group, the Hilltop Squares in central Pennsylvania, for 17 years, and he's also a member of the Board of Governors. And we're really happy to have Tommy on the panel because Jerry and I, we love what we do, but it's nice to have Tommy, who I know, being a dancer for over 20 years, Tommy is somebody, who travels all over the country and somebody who's a very more popular name. And I think it's great to know that there's somebody else out there besides those of us are kind of the local people. And I think it's great that everybody knows that, Tommy does this too. It's not just, your local caller and things like that, but even the ones who can sing gorgeous and have wonderful, and are willing to share that also. So I think it's fantastic. I'm going to let Jerry start today and talk about his experiences, and I'm sure he'll talk about the committee. And I'm going to follow up at the end just about, what do these handicaps kind of mean to you as a caller? Things to think about, kind of like teaching strategies. I'll actually come more from my special ed background in conjunction with being the caller for the groups. And Tommy's going to share his experiences and his new ideas too. So, Jerry?
Thank you, Michelle. I don't know yet if this is working. Is it working at all? No. Test 1, 2. We got a lot of static. We'll do away with it. Alrighty, I know this one works because Michelle was sounding very good. I want to, first of all, say thank you for attending this special session group, and this is our second year of doing this, so we're kind of new at it and still in formative stages. And we did set a mission statement this year, and I'm going to share just a couple of tidbits from that. But first of all, I don't know if you've taken the time to go into the registration area and look at the milestone book. But there are some folks in there that you have to respect and appreciate what's come before us and what's still among us. And these folks have dedicated themselves to square dancing and whatever niche they were in, but also to the good of square dancing, and they really have spent the time and dedicated themselves. And with us this morning, we have people that have dedicated themselves. Tom Miller's been around already 29 years and has established himself and has acquired a lot of respect. Michelle has dedicated herself to handi-capable dancing, and she is in that field as a professional. I have dedicated myself to handi-capable square dancing and actually made it the niche because it is a special field and a special endeavor within the square dancing population. And so it is different, and it requires special attention, and we, with that thought, developed the committee, and it was our desire to get handi-capable acknowledged through the CALLERLAB and felt that that would be the avenue for us to use as a conduit to really expand the knowledge and opportunities for the handi-capable population. And very honestly, if you didn't read the direction article that Michelle wrote just recently, you might want to grab it. I have a copy. If anybody wants it, I'll send it to you if you don't. But basically what she did in there was to address what is handi-capable dancer, or a handi-capable dancer. And we're in Reno, and it's realize every new opportunity, and probably I could summarize what we're doing here this morning with the fact that there is extreme opportunity in the area of handi-capable dancers. And what Michelle did is to say in here that handi-capable means someone who is capable of learning and dancing, but may have difficulty learning it the way it is taught. They need more time, and they need more physical cues, and they need repetition. That's the only difference. You talk about a bunch of folks who really appreciate everything you do for them in mainstreaming their lives. These are the folks that really appreciate it. They're forgiving, they're respectful, and they know how to have a good time. And for me as a caller, I've shared this with a number of other callers in the mainstream world, that I have probably the most freedom and flexibility as a caller to change the program in any given evening, even if I'm teaching, because I might have my teaching schedule all prepared, but depending on the full moon conditions, it changes rapidly, and so you have to be very flexible. Also, I have different nights of classes because the one club that I have in Sacramento, we actually had to divide it out into 2 different clubs or 2 different nights because of the levels of advancement. That club will have its 10th anniversary this coming February. And so we have dancers that are dancing a lot of mainstream and snippets of plus, and they are able to dance a little bit at mainstream regular dances. The speed is their only holdback. They have a couple of mental blocks on particular calls, but you know, we'll address those as a committee because that's one of the issues we want to deal with. So in general introduction, I think that kind of says where I'm coming from, and I believe where Michelle is in supporting as vice chair and what are real reasons for creating the handi-capable committee. Now, as far as the committee function of developing the mission and vision statement, I want to just give you the synopsis of that, because this is the heart of it. It says we will promote, teach, support, mentor, and provide guidance to callers to enable them to provide handi-capable dancers the opportunity to enjoy the maximum benefits and joy that square dancing can provide. I think that's the goal of every caller here, and especially the Caller Development Committee and the accreditation committees and everything else. It's just to provide opportunity, enjoy the maximum benefits that square dancing can provide, and that's what we're about. The vision statement is we feel that this special needs group has a population that is undetermined. I've called 2 groups in Australia and Tasmania, and there is a need in those remote areas. They're not remote to them. You know, it's just like the fellow from Tokyo last night. He says, "I don't speak English smooth, but I speak Japanese very good." You know, and so it's just not explored, but the need is there. The more folks that I've talked to, even in the international arena, the groups are there. The support groups are there, and in the United States, the support groups are everywhere. We just don't have the people or the outreach yet or the development to the stages where we can create it. But I think it is just right on target with the theme of realize every new opportunity, because the opportunity is there probably to do untold numbers of multiplications of what we already have. And what we have probably is a known club registration of around 1,500 dancers across the United States right now. We have national conventions in the U.S. Handi-Capable Association, and we'll address those as we go through the session. But you know, this is it. What we're going for is the Reno and realize the opportunity and develop it. This group can benefit tremendously from modern Western square dancing and its associated activities. We wish to extend the outreach of CALLERLAB and callers, giving the opportunity to develop the handi-capable square dancing program. That pretty much summarizes the vision and mission statements. We developed also some goals last year. I have to apologize. My health didn't allow me to do too much last year, and I actually kind of went backwards. And I had a heart attack right after I did the National Handi-Capable Convention, and so that slowed me down. And I think that I'm ready to fire up again. This is good. When you come to these conventions, you get recharged. A couple of things we have discussed and really want to focus on this year, and if you're interested in helping the committee, there will be a committee meeting later on this afternoon at 3:30 now, right? No, I'm sorry, 1:30. It's moved from 3:30. And Michelle's going to discuss a lot of these things, but we're going to focus on developing and distributing brochures. We want to create some brochures and promotional material. We want to expand the directory, which we have handed out. Has anybody got all the handouts, or does everybody have it? Okay. That's as we know it today. Some of this is on the U.S. Handi-Capable web, and we're bringing that up to date as we go. But we'll try and make sure we get all the clubs that we can locate onto that list and put it out there for you. We just found out one today from Wichita, Kansas is here representing. Develop and distribute a list of handi-capable friendly festivals and dances. There are actually a good number of those already. I'll pass some flyers around, which I have here somewhere. I'll find them as soon as I'm through talking. But it's some of the California friendly conventions and state conventions. Now, Sacramento has the California State Convention coming up this month, and they have a full-time hall for handi-capables. The Silver State Nevada Convention is here, and they are really gracious to us, and the handi-capable will have a full-time hall. And some of you probably were in it yesterday when we did the marketing session, because that's where we have the handi-capable dancers. So we appreciate all of those functions and support of those groups and conventions. We want to open communication channels for the handi-capable program, and I think that's a big function that we need to do through websiting, through CALLERLAB, through U.S. Handi-Capable Association, and so on. I don't know that everyone got a handout on the U.S. Handi-Capable Square Dance Association, but let me give you the web address for that if you'd like to mark it down. The web. Oh, okay. All right. In either event, it's www.ushandicapable.org. ushandicapable.org. And most of the clubs are on that directory at that site. I mentioned I have 3 clubs, 2 in Sacramento, 1 in Auburn, California, and the one in Sacramento will be having their 10th anniversary. I remember really well the week prior to the first night I called for that group, and in formation, there was a plus couple who had a 23-year-old son who actually started the organization. And they were involved in the Sacramento Area Association for the Retarded, and they showed up with 26 people the first night. But of course, I had no clue what I was going to do the first night, actually, and I was pretty nervous about it. I knew that I was going to get them all in a circle, and I was going to put music on and let it go from there. But I had not met the folks yet, and I hadn't met their son, and I came in a Western outfit, boots and everything, and their son is probably just about the size of Tom, you know, pretty robust. Robust. Isn't that good? Yeah, that retains your self-esteem and everything. Yeah. Kind of represents a can of Coors or something. Sorry about that. I couldn't give you all that good stuff. No. He was a 23-year-old that's stout, you know, and I walked in there and he looked at me and he put his arms out and said, "Randy Travis!" And he came and gave me the big yellow, and I melted. And of course my life hasn't been the same since. That's really all it took. You know, from there, the rest of the folks that came in I got to meet, and the parents are just extremely supportive. In that group, they do have a good group of parents, not just homes, care centers, and so on, where they drop them off for babysitters. And then I do have a Tuesday night group that's pretty much the care homes and the babysitters, and it's harder because they don't come weekly. You know, they just don't get the repetition. They'll get dropped off. I know one group home drops off 16 boys. No girls, 16 boys. And they all come in and they sign up and they pay their fee because it's an adult school program, but they pay a weekly fee. And whether they dance or not it doesn't make much difference to them. I make sure they get in at least 1 or 2 tips. But I may only have 8 girls and 30 guys that night. The Sacramento Guys and Dolls split up because once we got through about 3 years, the Angels were getting pretty good. And I require every dancer to go through a full year of new dancer class and then another year as an Angel with the new dancers. That's their minimum before they can advance. And we've actually been spun off to a Thursday night group, which is what we call level 3 and 4. First is level 1 for new dancers, 2 for an Angel, and then we go to 3 and 4, and we start adding. We finish off the basics, and then we start adding some mainstream, and at level 4 we throw in a little plus. We have to be kind of selective on the mainstream because there are a few spots that are mentally blocked. You know, they just can't do circulates worth a darn. And that's kind of tough, but they always want a Ferris wheel. If you're doing single circulate, they want to go the wrong way, or, you know, and boys circulate on the outside, whatever. We'll talk about those because those are special needs that we want to address, probably more so even than developing timing. It's those special things and skills that we need to work on. The handout. Oh, I don't have this handout. Did I give you one? I gave you one on the Sacramento Guys and Dolls. It was actually from the 46th National Square Dance Convention when I developed this, and I was happy with it, so I haven't changed it much because it gives the basics of how do you start a club? What are the club needs that were identified by this group? And you can see the third page there is you need a caller and a facility, and you need dancers and enthusiastic supporters, parents, and so on. A name isn't so important, but this group actually came up with their name, at least some ideas beforehand. They then went for the nonprofit status. They established a bank account. Once they got their organization pretty well going, they came up with the bylaws, insurance I provided for a while, and now they have their own. And then they went for the fundraising ideas. Some of the resources that they located, you can read these. I think they're great ideas. I'm going to give you a couple of more support resources when I talk a little bit about the convention, which I need to move on or I'll use the entire time. There's a story there about the caller's perspective and the club perspective. There's a list of some of the favorite songs and music that I use and have found that is well liked and responded to. There's a calling list that was developed by this club actually after we went through a lot of choices. Then there's a story from the American Square Dance on the Pioneer Squares in San Francisco, which actually at one time was very large, and then they kind of backed down, and now they have a caller back in there named Jim Wiley who's got it back up to 4 or 5 squares, and they're doing really well. Maybe you can pass these around. Those are the ones on the different events. I want to talk just briefly about the U.S. Handi-Capable. the U.S. Handi-Capable Association was actually started by the East Coast clubs. And when I got involved, the East Coast was where the semi-annual conventions were being held for the U.S. Handi-Capable clubs. And so I said, well, we need to expand this across the United States. So we branched out to an arm called the U.S. Handi-Capable West. And we sponsored our first Handi-Capable convention nationally right here in Reno last year. Were any of you here? I know Michelle was. The program from that looks like this, except black and white for you folks. And I want to go through just a couple of things there because in my mind it was a huge success and a great effort for the West Coast for the first year. This year that U.S. Handi-Capable Convention is in St. Petersburg, and it's actually noted on the back inside cover of this program. And then the following year back on the West Coast in Las Vegas. The reason for the program is just kind of give you an idea of how similar this is in concept to anything else that we do in square dancing. You can see that there's an organization that has to be in charge, kind of. There's a list of the clubs in attendance, and these clubs are all listed in your directory. But we had about 10 clubs there. Some of the sponsors that I want you to look at, for instance, look at page 3. There's the Round Table Pizza. I got Round Table Pizza to print raffle tickets and in enough quantity to send them to all the clubs. And we did a fundraiser for the clubs, and they were able to keep half of the money that they got from their dollar prize tickets that they sold, and then the rest of it provided prizes. But Round Table picked up all the printing cost. Next page, you got a list of callers, just like any other convention. We had 8 callers that volunteered their time and came, brought their groups. We had sponsors like Placer Credit Union, and actually they made a donation for the travel funds for the clubs in the Sacramento area and Auburn area. So groups like credit unions, they see the social value and all the other potentials of this function, so you can find support there. Susie Q, who's here at CALLERLAB, came to our convention, was our badge purveyor, and also did the photography. So she does that as well. We had a banquet, and I think if you just keep turning pages, you'll stay with me, but we had entertainment, and they just loved the fact that I had an Elvis impersonator and a juggler magician, and that was really good stuff. It really got the convention up and running and everybody happy and good mood. Knights of Columbus, I think they're just about anywhere, aren't they? And they are good supporters. So you might just keep them in mind. Exhibitions. These folks love to do exhibitions, and I don't care if they just get out there and they circle for 5 minutes. They're all given 15 minutes at our conventions to do their thing. They do a grand march, they march in as a group, and then they have the floor, and it's just their time to shine, and they do. And like I said, they go out there and only make a big star, I don't care. They just get out there on the floor and show it, and they have as good a time as anybody. I wish I could show you the video, and it was worthwhile, but my club, being the host club, put on kind of a light show, and I had 4 squares or 5 squares on the floor, and we had the what do you call those light stick things that illuminate, and then we had them around their neck and around their wrists, and we did a blackout dance. Nobody expected the lights to go out once we came out on the floor, but it was just like the whole floor was floating. Very, very impressive. Yeah. So you might want to try that. That's a fun thing you can do at any graduation, any festival, wherever you want. Just grab those things. DJ books have those, and you can get them at a lot of stores. The badge dance thing is a big deal for us. The kids love to get special recognition and badges, so I do a lot of badge dances. We have special functions. Sony was a good supporter. If you haven't seen Sony in here, go see them. They gave us a $2,000 donation. I went to Walmart and said, I want to buy portable CD players. I want to buy 50 of them to give away as raffle prizes, and I'm going to use Sony's money. And they matched it. You never know. Calling schedule, just like any other calling schedule. We have in here the open floor call list for that convention. You can take a look at that. You might see what's going on, but we have to establish the floor level at these things. They like to do special tours, and then the next two handi-capable conventions are listed in there. So I think you can see a lot of similarity there in any convention and what these folks like to do. The club directory I've already talked about. You have it now. Please help us if you know of any other organizations around, any handi-capable groups. Please let us know. If you need my card, I have some extra cards up here, but I think Michelle's material will give you some contacts, plus the club directory is there. I mentioned the Realize Every New Opportunity as our target and our goal, and I am very, very sincere that I don't think we even realize the opportunity for the handi-capable dancers of this world, and I just want to be a part of it as Michelle does and Tom supports, that we can find a lot of good and do a lot of good and give a lot of enjoyment and other benefits. When you think about dancing for the health of it, everything that we talk about is even twice as good for these folks, so it's worth our while. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. A couple things just to point out. Jerry was talking about the way his group is set up. My group is very different, and when you hear Tommy, his is probably going to be even set up different. Mine are both kind of directed by the Association for Retarded Citizens, the ARC. So I actually do not have a lot of parent support, where Jerry does have a lot in his group. Mine are more of people who kind of either they live on their own, they live in the group homes or in supervised living situations, and they do get dropped off. And I actually have the staff from the ARC as well as a few angels from surrounding clubs who come out and assist me. So I don't have a lot of parent support. They're thrilled to have them go on the trips to the Handi-Capable convention and everything, so we get the support that way, but they're not actively coming out. We did have a couple parents assist with club outfits and things like that, which was wonderful to see, because for a long time the parents really didn't do too much. So realize, depending on where your group is kind of surfacing from, your group may be different. And like I said, Tom, you may find out Tommy's has a totally different arrangement than that. And also, just for the tape too, like Jerry said, now there is a U.S. Handi-Capable convention every year, and now they're having one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. So you can check on the websites and everything, and they'll tell you where they are for the next few years. And it's just, like Jerry explained about the one here in Reno, it's just a wonderful experience for the groups that look forward to it every year. It is a big expense, so either fundraising or some groups can only still go every other year, but it's something to experience. So if you find out there's one in your area, it's definitely worth going to check out. And here you go, Tommy.
Yeah, thank you. All right. First of all, let me say it's a pleasure working with Jerry and Michelle here this morning. I was kind of ecstatic when they asked me about doing this seminar. I don't look at myself as a handi-capable square dance caller. I look at myself just as a square dance caller, because when you categorize people, the wide spectrum of everything is incredible, because we have learning disabilities in our everyday life that we deal with. And so it's kind of neat that I'm doing this panel, because it's something that I've been working with Down syndrome people for 17 years. I've had a group, and let me just kind of give you a background on how we got started. This is the 17th year coming up, and our season goes from September through May. And because the May through September, they have other things in the summertime: camping, horseback riding. Most of the dancers that dances with my group comes from homes. They have their own private apartments, group homes. Some of them still live at home with their mom or dad or their sisters. And when I was contacted 17 years ago, I was sitting there just as a matter of fact, I was going over my work list for my class when the phone rang, and this lady goes, "I'm Sister Michelle Brody," and she goes, "Are you the gentleman to call square dances?" And I said, "Yes, I am." She says, "Well, how would you like to call for a Down syndrome group?" And I think I went silent, and I'm like, "Well, okay, I think I can. Sure, why not?" This is what I do for a living. So I said, "Sure." So she said, "When do you want to do it?" And I said, what do you have in mind? Or she said, "Well, I don't know how big of a group we're going to end up with." She says, "Let's plan it like for a month from now." So we set up a date, and I have a group, my advanced group is on a Tuesday night, and they wanted to do it on Tuesday, so they didn't have a hall or anything like that. And I said, "Well, let's do it before my advanced group, which is called the Mountaintop Squares." And eventually this group has turned into the Hilltop Squares. So I have this group from 6:30 until 7:30, and then my advanced group starts at 8 o'clock. So my first hour is the Hilltop Squares, and my advanced group, my A2 group and C1 group, is called the Mountaintop Squares. So, but anyway, that was months down the road later. But when I got there the first night, it was like I'll be honest with you, I was scared because I've never worked with these kind of people. I'll be the first to tell you that I had no education working with these people, no schooling, no degree. So I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. And we ended up with 6 squares that night. And the people that we had, I had no angels. And if you said on one of the seminars I did yesterday that when I do one-nighters and things like that, I have no angels coming to help me. I just like doing it. So I took that same route with working with the handi-capable that particular night. And let me tell you, it was a job. It was just, it was an incredible, it was a challenge that if I would quit calling square dances tomorrow, that would probably be one of my most memorable ones of getting started calling for a group. Over the years, we've seen quite a change of people coming and going. We still have, out of the people that started back 17 years ago, we probably still have about a square and a half still dancing with us. And it's amazing because when you say that you have a group of Down syndrome, they look at you like, "Can't do very much, can you?" And I'm like, well, yeah, because they're not stupid. You know, these people are incredible. If you've never worked for them, I would put that challenge in anybody's lap, because at the end of the day, it's probably one of the most rewarding things that has ever happened in my calling career. And I do it free, gratis. I've never got a dime for it. They charge $1 per person to come in and dance for that hour. And what that does for them is their Christmas party, pizza party. At the beginning of the month, they have a birthday party for everybody who has a birthday in that particular month. So that's where the money goes to. The rewards come in. The awards come into play is when you see them at the store, the grocery store, at church, on the street. They run up to you and give you that hug, and that's the reward, the smile. And for those who don't know me, I like to pick, and I like to kid, and I like to have a good time. And I imagine that. I treat those people the same way that I treat my C1 group, A2 group. I treat them with the same. I kid with them, and I play with them. And the thing of it is that we don't give those kind of folks the credit that they deserve. Because there's probably not one of us sitting here in this room that doesn't have a handicap of some sort. And we take that for an everyday granted that, oh, well, we can get over that. Maybe someday we deal with our handicap and we don't look at it to the degree, well, okay, we're fine. These people deal with this every day of their life. And they deal with the people that think that they have a major disease, and some people can't get within 10 feet of these people. And it just irritates me when I hear, how can you work with people like that? And I look at them and say, it's no different than you going to your workplace and dealing with people that tells dirty stories all day long. You deal with them, you work with them. This is what I enjoy working with. This is a challenge. And like with Jerry and Michelle, they can tell you that it has been quite an experience, I'm sure, over the years that they have called square dances for the handy-capable. But let me tell you something. And this has happened to me. I have been kicked. I have been hit. I have been spitted on. I have been vomited on. Everything. I've had seizures. I've had cardiac arrest. I've had people falling down and breaking an ankle. I've had fist fights break out between the guys. And I still go back. I'm like, why? Because if I wouldn't do it, these people would be walking away with nobody doing it for them. That's why I do it. This is what I do for a living. I call square dances 24/7. This is something that I enjoy doing. So 17 years later, I still have the same group. We have a change. Our list is not long. It doesn't matter if we're dancing 4 calls, 5 calls, 15 calls. As long as they're smiling and dancing to that music, and I let them get up and call. We always have extra people. I always bring somebody up to the microphone and let them call. Or if there's a happy birthday, they sing, I don't. Christmas songs, they sing, I don't. You know, and I do singing calls. I treat that hour dance just as if I was to come to your club and call, I would treat it with patter singing call. Patter singing call. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. I don't care. As long as they're dancing, that's the main thing. We'll start here, we'll be finishing here before too much longer, and they were really upset that I wasn't going to be home this week. And that's something that we've been dealing with for 17 years, that when I go away, can we get somebody else to call? And I says to him, I says, no. And the reason that nobody else will call, because nobody else will call for them. They're scared to death. There's nobody in our area that will take that challenge to come in and take Tom Miller's place to call that hour. And I said, so that's okay. Take the vacation and enjoy your week off. And they throw a fit. So for 17 years, we've been dealing with, oh, you're going away again? And I'm like, it's only twice throughout the whole month I'm gone, you know. So it's like CALLERLAB convention and maybe over the Christmas holidays. But when you come back, it's, you miss a week or 2 weeks. It's like you've been gone for a lifetime for these people. And it's like I get there early and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And as soon as they walk in the door, they run over and bombard you, and it really is kind of neat. And if you've never done handi-capable work with the Down syndrome or anything like that, the mentally challenged, it is just a joy to take that time, and the reward at the end is just incredible. I mean, you can go to bed at night feeling really good about yourself, and knowing what you did, and it's kind of neat. I have a lady that takes care of all the money, and I don't do any of that. This is their dance. We don't worry about the costume dress. We just let them come in and so forth, and we'll just take a day, maybe go out for a picnic. I'll say the 1 week is we'll plan a date like maybe 2 weeks down the road and go out for a picnic, and just go out for a picnic with the group, and I'll spend the day with them. And I'll throw the ball and the frisbee, and they're like a family. I mean, I have people that's in their 40s and 50s, and they're just like having kids, and it's incredible. It really is incredible. But when I was talking to Michelle about this, I says, "Is it okay to talk about other things?" And she goes, "Well, sure." I also work with the wheelchair group, which is handi-capable. I have also called for the blind, handi-capable. These people's minds are okay. They're just blind. I work with people without limbs. And when we talk about that is like Michelle said, the umbrella. We, as this organization, I think we look at the Down syndrome, the mentally challenged. But the challenge is a wide spectrum because of the handicapped. And you may agree with this or not agree with this. Do you realize calling for kindergarten kids is a handicap? Because these kids don't know their right from their left. That's a handicap. But we don't look at it under this particular umbrella. You know, so you need to look and say to yourself, what is a handicap? You know, someone that comes to your dance and you see them with 2 hearing aids and they're always trying to fix it or saying, well, we can't hear, that's a handicap. Not a mentally handicapped. It's a hearing impaired handicap. And these are some things that we got to deal with as square dance callers. Now, the challenge is when you have a Down syndrome that has a hearing problem, that can't see, only has one hand. Now, you want to talk about a handicapped person. That's a challenge. Because I have one of those in my group. Every week he's there. And I thank God every day for my kids, and I look at something like that. But this guy always smiles. He always takes his teeth out to show me that he cleaned his teeth. I got to deal with that every week. So I take mine out and show him back. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, but it's endless. So, you know, so we need to look, you know, like stroke victims and Parkinson's disease and group homes. You know, it's, of course, when I do wheelchair groups, I have pushers. You know, I have the workers come out and help them push. Some of them can wheel themselves. But it's endless when we think about handi-capable. I would like Michelle and Jerry, you know, because this is, you know, they're the chair of this panel and the vice chair of this panel, to kind of expand on that a little bit more over the years on their committee, because I think, as you can tell here today, people are gun shy when they hear handicap, when they hear handi-capable. They're gun shy. They're scared to death because they don't think they can do it. You know, and that goes the same with calling one-night stands. We have some of the best callers in the business that are scared to death to do a one-night stand because they can't take 5 basics and work the call. They can't work a 2-hour dance with 5 basics. It's the same way working with these kind of people. They're scared to death because 9 times out of 10, they just haven't applied themselves or pushed their limits to where they can work with these people. These chairs should be full. These chairs should be full. Over my 17 years of calling for the handi-capable, I brought probably 14 or 15 squares of, per se, normal people into the activity. Because for workers from the group home, parents, brothers and sisters of these people, you know, so this has been an end to bring other people into our other clubs. And these chairs should be, like I said, should be full. But people are afraid when they see handi-capable. That's why I like to say to see this committee expand a little bit. I was not a member of this committee. I'll be the first to tell you that. I was not a member of this committee. Before this convention is over, I will be a member of this committee. Because I think it's an important committee. Just for the fact being is because of the wide spectrum that we need to look at. We need to be looking at the stroke victims and the wheelchair bound, and we need to be looking at the Parkinson's and the special needs people, the blind, the hearing impaired. Those are all groups out there that just wait to do something different with their life. And it's not hard. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call the Blind Association or call a nursing home and tell them you want to go in. They're going to be open arms. They're going to be open arms to let you come in. And it's nice if you go to the nursing home to take a group in with a flare because they can see that. Some of my people that has been dancing with me 17 years has never seen another group of square dancers. They've never seen any other square dancers other than what they've seen there. And I feel that we need to be opening the road wider than what it is. If like I said, if I stop calling tomorrow, my memories of my 17 years of calling for the Down syndrome has just been a joy. And it's kind of a rest from the end of May to September. Because when that first Tuesday comes that you don't have to call for them, it's like, wow. But when that September comes, that week before, it's like a rush. And you have to start preparing yourself all over again. Because you know what's going to happen. You know you're going to get bombarded. So, you know, I call through C1. I travel all over the country, and calling square dances is the love of my life. It has been since I was 14. And then I got married. Of course, my love of my life is now my wife and my 2 kids, and square dancing is in the middle. And what do you want? Taking collections. Yeah. Good deal. You look like a priest this morning. Look at that. Good job. Where's the collar? Scott and I go way back by the seminars. I've always picked on Scott when he comes in and changes the tape. I think Scott just dreads when he comes in and changes the tapes that I pick on him, you know, so. Yeah. He starts dreading to see you. But anyway, you know, so how many here has already established a handi-capable group of Down syndrome or whatever it might be? Yeah. Oh, you need to get on the mic. Mike, thank you. This one's not working.
Yeah, my name's David Myers. I'm from Wichita, Kansas. I have a retarded group that I've had for 10 years, and this group's actually been dancing since 1964. Wonderful people. And they're quite a family. I did have a cerebral palsy group in wheelchairs, which I miss. They were dangerous, intelligent. Unfortunately, they do sometimes fight amongst themselves, and it got to the point, if somebody's here, somebody won't be here. That was the tough part. But this is the hardest, toughest love job you'd ever have. Yeah, it's fantastic. And we just do this every Tuesday night. Yeah, every Tuesday night for 10 years. But it's worth every bit you do into it. So.
Thank you. Thanks. Like I said, if you have not had a group of these kind of dancers, I'd put that challenge on your lap. I would like to challenge you to just try it. Let the committee know how you make out, because I guarantee you'll go back. Without a doubt, you'll go back. The first week, you might think about it. The second week when you go back, the thinking's gone. You go back the third week, you're going to say, why haven't I done this before? You know, and like I said, do-si-dos and stars and circles means a lot to a lot of people. Any questions?
I just wonder if there is anybody that has started a group like out of a high school or something like that. I work at the high school with what we call the the class is actually called Lifestyles, and what we do is there's various handi-capable type people in there. We have kids that are autistic, Down syndrome, MR, and Dave and I have been talking about trying to do something with these kids, and just wondered if anybody has and how you went about it.
I can respond to that. I also teach in high schools, and how I got into high school was through the special, I call them the special unit of the high school. And they asked me if they heard that I had this group about 5 years ago. A lady by the name of Mrs. Frisbee had called me, and she asked me if I could come up and call for her group. And she said, no, we have some in wheelchairs, we have some that has MS. So I went up. I said, sure. And I started going up. Went up just a couple times that week and just did some circles and all that with us. And that group, where those kids that's in that particular class, they have their phys ed with the other high school students. They don't have. Let me clarify that. The ones that are really, really challenged have their own special groups. But the ones that can walk, or like maybe the mentally, are mixed in with the other high school kids. Of course, now they can't do what the other high school kids can do, but when I go in now to teach high school kids, I'll have them in with my other group. And what they do is they bring those kids in just for a couple tips. And we'll dance in between the breaks that I give the high school students. We take that special time and do that. If you can get yourself, and I don't know how your school works, I don't know if your group is mixed in with the other kids or not. Not for phys ed. So then they have their own phys ed. Okay, that's the end that you need to go to. You need to treat that as a physical education in with that. And if I'm not mistaken, they probably have a specialty person other than the phys ed teacher do that particular gym class for those kids. Then you're the in. You're the person. Then you're the person that's going to say to those kids, "We're square dancing today in phys ed." That's a perfect in to get into. That's your in. I mean, you have the okay to do that. And I don't know how challenged your kids are, whether they're in wheelchairs. Then perfectly. Now you have to have people to assist some of the people walking and so forth. Then. So she's saying her high school kids are working with the kids and so forth. That's what the comments was for the TAPE benefit. So that she does have pals to help the kids in her phys ed. Then that's the end for you to start what you need to do to work with the handi-capable. And I personally think that since you're doing that, I don't think you have to go to the administration or anything like that to ask them. Just do it. You know, you might have to have the okay, you know, to bring the equipment in and make sure that's okay. Yeah, make sure. Yeah, I don't know if they'll okay that or not, but but that's a perfect in, and that's how I got into high schools. Besides, and I do 2 weeks each semester at just one particular high school. I've been doing that 5 years because as soon as they saw me up there working with the challenged, they brought me in to work with the other kids. So I do 2 weeks of 4 periods a day of 88-minute periods, from 8 o'clock in the morning till 2:35. And in those classes, like I said, there's always a mix of the handy challenge kids coming in to dance with them. So that's a perfect in. If you've never worked like that before, that's a perfect in. And besides that, you already know them. You already know the personalities. Yeah, you already know the personalities. So, you know, starting something new, going to the hall and opening up a new class, you don't know these kids' personalities. You know their personalities, which is take the opportunity, take that ball and run with it. Don't let that go. Oh, microphone. It's on.
We were actually thinking about every Tuesday night, Dave and I help with the Special Olympics. Every Tuesday night we help with Special Olympics, but Special Olympics ends the second week in May. So we were thinking about maybe doing it between May and September instead of the other way, and continue Tuesday night meetings. So I don't know if is that too short a time maybe, or what do you guys think?
Actually, I think any opportunity you want to do, just to give them the experience, and even if it becomes an annual thing, like you said, they have so many other activities, and a lot of them are involved, whether it be in recreation activities with different associations and Special Olympics. And I know a lot of my dancers, you know, they've got their bowling they're doing right now, they're doing swimming, they're golfing, they're doing everything. So it's kind of hard to fit it in. So if you can fit it in where you want to. I mean, don't let the time frame limit you. If you're giving them that experience, I mean, and it could, you know, they could actually find time for it later on, you know. But I think, you know, don't make it a limitation. Just take it and run, like Tommy said, take it and run with it. Just, you know, it may be a short period of time, but it becomes something they do all the time and they look forward to. One of the counties near me asked me if I would come in, and being out a couple nights as it is during the week, you know, it was like giving up another night would be really tough, you know, with my daughter and everything. But they were willing to do it for a 5-week session. And this may become an annual thing, but actually, and then we are hoping to actually get them connected with one of the groups that's actually not too far for them. So maybe they'll come out once in a while and dance with them and things like that. So it definitely could lead to other things. So I say go for it.
Yeah, I think it's still not working.
All right, I think Scott gave us some bogus equipment this morning because he knew I was on this panel. I think if you can take half an hour, whatever it might be, I just think that whatever time that you can give these people, or whatever time they can give you, then that's the time that you need to take with these people. Every July, I do they have a camp, and it's between my area and the Latrobe area in Pennsylvania. And it's a summer camp for groups all over Pennsylvania that has participated in the Pennsylvania Olympics, the Special Olympics. And I'll have anywhere between 15 to 25 squares of handicap. And one of the girls that has been there every year, do you remember the black lady from Philadelphia who met the president and she got up there and did the speech at one of them? She's there every July. And you would never know that she was a special person. And she's the first one, and she is the motivator. She gets up, and I mean, she is just incredible to get these people on the square. I want to stress or make that comment on earlier, but excuse me. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, it's take the opportunity and you know, do the research. I was looking at Michelle's handicap. This is the first I've seen any of these, by the way. I was looking at Michelle's her handout, and it has about research, and there might have been Jerry's about researching groups and going out. The only way you're going to find any kind of groups like this, whether it is blind, hearing impaired, Down syndrome, is to go out and look for it. I was fortunate. Mine fell on my lap. It just fell on, you know, but that may never happen again. If I would quit tomorrow, I'd probably have to go out and look at it to continue what I need to do. Go out and research. You know, I live in a small town, in central Pennsylvania, on top of the hills. My town has no businesses. I mean, we have a working farm in our town, for heaven's sakes. You know, we have a post office and a bar and a church. And, so the people go to church, they pick up their mail and go to the bar. I mean, that's... but anyway, I live in such a small area, and it's even the small towns that are around, and that's where all these people come from, and that within that 20-mile radius. And there's group homes, I guarantee you, not too far from where you live in your hometown. Of course, now when we start talking Wichita and California and the Philadelphia area and Sacramento, that's a big area. There's a lot of people in those areas. You know, there's a lot of people. So from where you live, within a 20-mile radius, 15-mile radius, there's probably group homes out there. There's probably homes out there that would just love to take their kids to a square dance because it's something different for them. That's the research you need to do. And like I had a sister call me, go to one of the local churches and ask them if there's any groups that you know of that would be interested. They're bound to help you because they're going to help people like that as well. All right.
Another thing I thought of is Tommy talked about researching, but don't forget to mention it to your square dancers, because I find a lot of the dancers are hesitant to come out and assist, even though I do have angels. And you have to be careful how you use angels, too, because people tend to underestimate this group. So there are those who really need the physical assistance. There are some you just need an angel outside the square just to kind of direct somebody going in a direction. But also, I have people, and my husband will tell you he hates it, but whenever they're getting rid of square dance clothes, I'm the one they think of. And square dancers are constantly giving me clothes. Like Tommy says, he doesn't worry. And it's not the fact that they don't have to go out and buy it, but I get so many free clothes thrown in my direction. I mean, and they all have a couple outfits in it.
That's where Mike gets all of his outfits.
Yes, we recycle all Mike's shirts. So, but the square dancers have been wonderful. Yes, I have a van full of them right now, but you get people all different shapes and sizes. Everybody doesn't get everything at once, but they've all been great. But everybody has an outfit now, and they love to get dressed up, and it's nothing they have to fork out the money for. So use your square dance clubs out there. Let them know they are, they may not be able, or, they're scared to come out and assist, but that's one way they can help. And also they've helped sponsor dances for the groups, as fundraisers, and we had some of it, they want to help. They may not be the type of people to come out and interact with the handi-capable dancers, but they do want to help. So take advantage of that, too, to help you out.
Now, I just wanted to follow up a little extra on the high school concept. One of the groups that I do is sponsored through the high school's adult education program. And it's a little different structure because when we have the dances, they have to have people there representing the adult education program. So they're supposed to have a portion of like 1 to 5. That doesn't happen. If I have 1 or 2 people there, it's good. The other thing is that if we go to dances, even if they go to another club's anniversary dance or something and just a few miles away, they have to go as a group with the chaperones through the adult education program. And generally they just take a high school bus. And so then they're limited also to the time that they can get the bus and the driver. That group will bring probably 10 or 12 dancers up here to the Silver State Convention, and so then they have an 8-hour window for that driver to get them up here, and they can dance, and then they got to get back. So there are different limitations, but it is a wonderful opportunity because the high school cafeteria is a facility that's furnished to us. We have no cost. And then, at least it is another avenue to go through. That's it. I have some follow-up when we close, but...
Yeah, before we close, we're actually getting close on time here. I put together just some helpful hints for what do the disabilities mean to you and I took some of, what because Tommy and I had spoken before, and I started with the Down syndrome and mentally retarded. Like, what things do you need to consider? A, being the caller, or A, you're getting a caller to come in. Like, between the slow response time, sometimes they need a few more, seconds to process the information. They need very concrete cues. Spatial awareness is a very tough thing. They may be easy to understand, but communication-wise, some of them may use sign language, they may use picture symbols. You're going to see all different communication means out there. It could be a communication device and everything. They may be unaware of social cues. Like, Mike always loves for me to tell this story. I have a dancer, when he comes up, he gets right in my face, and I mean right up, and that's just who he is. That's Brian. Brian comes up, hi, Michelle, but how we usually, we'll stand like a foot away, but I mean, he's right there. And when Mike came the first time, that really threw him for a loop because Mike's kind of, when he doesn't know somebody, he's a little apprehensive. And actually he's gotten a lot used to that, but Brian stands out in his mind as one of those people, and it's not bad, that's just who he is, but you need to be aware that that's something you may run into. And I put varying degrees of capability. I don't want to say disability, capability. You have those dancers who will need no assistance whatsoever. They just need a couple extra seconds. You have some dancers who may need a little assistance, just maybe, you know, kind of a little nudge over there, or you have somebody, an angel or somebody in your square, just to kind of help, maybe that extra little pressure on the arm to get them going the correct way. But then you may have some dancers who need a lot of assistance, or even physical assistance to get around. Then you have the autistic. So I kind of listed all the disabilities I can think of and helpful hints, like the autistic, they may not make direct eye contact. If you're not familiar with these disabilities, this is just kind of like an introduction to the disabilities, so you know, maybe you know what you'll encounter when you meet these people. In my group, I have Down syndrome, I have autistic, I've got, you know, people with cerebral palsy, I've got people with hearing difficulties. One girl is missing an eye, she has a glass eye, so, you know, visual impairment comes into play. But there's a lot of different things, like loud noises. For some disabilities, dealing with loud noises, like the autistic or even developmentally delayed, loud noises sometimes, yes, they cover their ears. I'm thinking of one person in particular, and she, even if I crank it up just a little bit more, sometimes that's tough for her, and she has a tough time with that. Even with the autistic, sometimes there's a better way to actually talk. You have to talk very concise. We actually call it telegraphic speech in the special ed field. But you can't be wordy. You need to be concise and to the point. Also, with learning, if you look at little kids, they love music and they pick up things with music, but also with this population, if you have like a melodic tone in your voice and sometimes kind of sing it through, but the music actually appeals to a part of the brain and is actually something that will help them be more successful. Sensory integration difficulties. I see this as being a teacher, but imagine not being able, if you pinched yourself and you could not feel that. Imagine hearing noises all the time and you can't tune them out. That's a disability that you can't see. And a lot of these people actually, you know, they may have primarily be Down syndrome or something like that, but this is another disability they have. And imagine they can't turn out those noises and everything. And, or, you know, they really need that deep pressure of an arm turn to, you know, so they physically know where their bodies are. That was just one thing in their development. Their bodies, their sensory system and being able to feel everything did not develop. So that's a totally unseen disability that you can't even see. So there's different things like they definitely will need more physical cues because they need to feel it with their bodies. So you have to remember all your senses when you're coming to teach these people. You know, if you've got somebody who's visually impaired, guess what? They may not have seen it. So if you're telling them to look at a particular wall, that's not going to help them. They're going to need more auditory cues or feeling it, tactile cues with their body. So you need to think about that. The cerebral palsy, you may have somebody who can't use half the side of their body, you know, or they have that limp, so it's causing a couple extra second delay. Like Tommy said, even with the wheelchairs, you have people who need to be pushed, you've got electric wheelchairs, and you have people who can independently maneuver themselves. So there's totally, we've talked about timing charts with the committee and things like that, and I feel there are just so many different, you know, different things. You can't come up with a timing chart. You need to individually look at your group, learn what the group needs, and it takes time to do that. So don't be tough on yourself feeling the first time you go in there, you need to know exactly what's going to work for this. It's a trial and error. And, you know, Jerry mentioned about the full moon. I believe it wholeheartedly, and especially as an educator, I believe it. When there's a full moon, you know. I mean, sometimes they are on, and you go, oh, this is great. Other nights you go, okay, we're just going to stick to circles and stars and maybe throw in a line in.
You don't even have to look at the calendar. You know when it's a full moon. I mean, you just know. I mean, when they come in and they're just full of energy, and it's like a starburst. It's like, oh, full moon tonight. You know, I mean, you just know without even looking at the calendar. Yeah.
Definitely. So, you know, take a look at this. I want to do it for the tape, but you have the blind and partially sighted. You have the deaf or hard of hearing. Now there's also the amplification systems that we have that are actually, so if you have people with hearing aids, actually there are systems out there to help them where they're getting the direct feedback from the caller. They may hear the background noise of the music, and it may not be as loud as it would be, but now there is a way to assist those people. So they're getting the direct feedback. You can hook right into the set, so they're hearing the direct feedback from the caller, which is something else to help make it successful for them. And that's what we want. We want them to be successful.
With your hearing impaired, I called for a group, and there was some people that was completely, they had no hearing whatsoever. And I remembered something that I saw years ago at our local university there in Loretto, Pennsylvania. There's a group out of Maryland, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a university or a college for the hearing impaired, and they had a football team, and we couldn't, we were wondering how this was going to happen, because I used to run with an ambulance there in Loretto years ago, and I would take that time and go to the football game, and when the game started, you always heard this boom, and we're like, geez, what was that? Well, here, for them to snap the ball, they had this gigantic drum, and every time that they were to snap that ball, they hit the side of the drum, the vibrations, and that's how they would snap the ball to know that the play was going to happen. Well, I thought of that when I was asked to go in and call for this group, and there was quite a few people that was completely deaf. I mean, nothing whatsoever. And I'm thinking to myself, now how can we get them to dance to the music? I mean, they can see perfectly. I turned all the way. I put as much bass on as I could, and I picked records that had that very distinctive bass, boom, 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 and you could just feel my table vibrating, and I know it was onto the floor because I could just feel it in my feet. That's how these people danced that whole hour, was from this boom, 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 that they heard the vibration on that particular on those particular songs, and I made sure that the bass was very distinctive. So there's ways to work that out there for people that cannot to hear. Just think. And there was something that I used back from years and years ago that I saw in a football game with them using that bass to get the vibration. And when you were standing there and they did that boom, I mean, the whole ground just shook. And I'm thinking, well, why can't I try that with my turntable? It worked. It really did work.
I know some callers have told me in coming and sharing their experiences, they actually put the speaker lower on the floor or put one up so they can hear a little bit, but also put one on the floor so that the music's directly going on the floor so the vibrations are stronger because of the bass. Also put multiply handicap. Like Tommy said, some of these people have more than one. So the severity of their disability may not be bad, but imagine having 2 or 3 or 4 different things tacked on top of it. So that makes it that much more difficult for them to learn. And I mentioned the stroke victims. The stroke victims, it may affect one part of their body and they can only move one side, or there are other parts of their brain. It may affect their time sense or their response time, their vision. It could be depth perception. It could be balance. So you got to take all those things. It may be you do, a two-handed swing, or you just don't. You don't do swings, and you just, promenade, something to make them successful. Parkinson's patients. I mean, we have to look at our population that's out there now. I mean, they're definitely, like Tommy said, there are multiple opportunities out there. You have Parkinson's patients who have trouble with their fine motor abilities, and they may actually do better with those arm turns. So it's something to help stabilize them and help them get around. And speed is definitely an issue, so you definitely want to slow things down. Even Alzheimer's, that's going to affect their spatial concepts, but also affect their short-term memory. So your one-night stand is going to be something you're consistently going to go back to, and you're probably going to have to do it over and over and over again. But there's more and more proof out there that dancing and keeping the mind going, and this is something that is helping to slow down some of these things. So it's, the benefits of square dancing are just so good for so many different populations. So, I mean, take a look at that just as a teaching tool and different things to think about, when you see this population, and maybe just to explain a little bit. Or if you see somebody making loud noises, you go, okay, they may be able to pick up those things real well, but they, okay, maybe the social cues are being affected. Just to kind of help understand who they are a little bit more, and they're not just that person with Down syndrome, but you understand the disability a little bit more. I think we can actually get ready to start wrapping up. Jerry, I know you wanted to say a couple more things.
Yeah, as we talk, it just brings so many things to mind that we can focus on, so we'll probably have to think about those afterwards and create another agenda. But and we can take time to focus on just the specifics because they're so great. A couple of quick thoughts that came across was deaf dancers. I have a deaf dancer in one of my groups, and if you can imagine, now Saturday, Michelle disabled a group for the callers to show them what it would be like to stop and count to 2 or 3 before you actually responded to a call, because by the time it gets here and comes out here, you know, it takes some time, and that varies with whatever the population is or the dancers in our groups. And this deaf dancer that I just have so much admiration for, because he doesn't hear the music. He does feel it, but he waits for the rest of the group, who is already counting to 2 or 3, and then watches to see what they're doing, and he does it, and his timing ends up being better than the rest of them. I mean, you talk about a right and left through. Just think of, well, okay, what did he say, you know? And then the rest of them don't even know where to start with a right and left through, and then, oops, that happened, and he does it, and swing through, and those kind of things. And you may never get your groups to that level, but who cares, you know? We just, but anyway, you have to admire that. Wheelchair groups, there is a group in Taipei, Taiwan that comes, and they attend our National Handi-Capable conventions, and they've been to the national convention. And they're all wheelchair dancers, and they're just a fabulous group of people. And they can dance a full mainstream floor. Their speed, and they're self-propelled. But you should see the beauty of how they execute, because they are the efficiency in executing and finding a direction. And you can leave that to your imagination. But I have some video I'll show someday, and we'll throw that into our video, because we are trying to produce some video snippets from all of our stuff. Nursing homes, I take, I take squares occasionally of my handi-capable groups to nursing homes to do exhibition. But then if we can, we get those folks in the wheelchairs out in a big circle, and we just do some circling around and have them dance. Blind dancers, I don't know if you've ever been involved with blind dancers or even seen a square of blind dancers. I was at an international convention one time at the Sands in Las Vegas, and there was a complete square of blind dancers, and they simply depend on the hand touch for their timing, because they make up for all their timing and other, you know, with the other sensors. And so as long as you touch their hand wherever you're supposed to be in a right and left grand or something like that, a right and left through, then they know exactly the time it takes and the space and everything around them without having the ability to see. And it's just a fabulous thing. And I've been in exhibitions where 1 or 2 of the dancers were blind dancers, and you would never know it. Opportunities are endless, and again, realize these new opportunities, and that's, I guess, where I stop.
We really want to thank you for coming out to the panel, and please spread the word. We're trying to find out, you know, more about different groups. There are so many people seeking outreach. You know, if you send them to the CALLERLAB, webpage and things like that, they can get to the committee through there. But a lot of people seeking information or groups. So, if you need more information, please feel free to contact one of us. Like I said, go out there and, go visit a group or go do it. And like I said, the rewards are definitely worth it. And thank you for coming. Any questions? I'm sorry. Any more questions out there before we wrap it up? Great. Thank you.